Hi there. My name is Jennifer Mitchell Earley, and I help individuals and teams achieve organizational success. Welcome to Leadership Matters. I'm in the midst of doing a leadership series. In the previous video, part 1, I talk about what quantifies, what qualities, what characteristics are indicative of exceptional leaders. Leaders who stand out throughout the course of your career, who have impacted you to the degree that you emulate them in your leadership style, or you've taken something away from them that will always influence how you lead your teams. If you haven't done so already, please watch part 1 of the series, What Makes a Leader Impactful? I'll link it below. As I think back over my career, there are 4 leaders who stand out immediately as individuals who impacted me and influenced me at that time and until present. The next and most recent leader, her name is Michelle. Michelle, oh my gosh, I don't think I have enough words to describe the impact that Michelle had on me. Michelle was the project manager for business readiness team for a project that I worked on most recently. Michelle is compassionate. She's emotionally intelligent. Michelle is a generalist. You can ask her anything that has to do with your job in that company, and she can tell you. There's no, let me have to get back to you, none of that. She's like on the front line, and she knows everything. There are some times where she'll give you the insight, and then she'll say, well, let me go and get some additional information. But for the most part, you never got question marks. You never got that bubble that appears next to people when they have no freaking idea, but they're going to, start blowing a little bit of smoke and camouflage. That was not Michelle. Michelle was trustworthy. Michelle is trustworthy. Michelle is compassionate. Michelle has this thing that I call magic. Michelle has magic. She does this here, and that's when all the magic happens. Michelle is self-disciplined and self-aware. She has active listening skills and humility. Michelle was always the person that we had an issue in our change management team that we called in that could close any deal. Not because she was a salesman, but because she understood and appreciated and respected everybody's role on the project, everyone's responsibility and priorities, and she was able to bring about a discussion that always ended in a win-win, where everyone felt represented, where everyone felt heard, where everyone felt like their priorities and their needs were being met. I'll give you a quick story about Michelle. There was a client that I got on the team that the team itself, business readiness, did not have prior to my receipt of them. And when I got them, I was told that, hey, this department, they've never worked with, any training and development department, organization, or any change management department. They really don't want our help, but they're getting a new system. And because it falls under the project, they kind of have to take our help. So you're going to go to these meetings, these workshops where they talk about this new program and, offer to document it and blah, blah, blah. And if there's a problem, come back, let us know, because they may not really want you in the room. What a way to start with a new client, right? So I go to the meetings, I listen. It's truly like being in another world, in a foreign country. They're speaking languages. I have no idea what they're saying, to be honest with you. I just take copious notes, and I do what I always do. I sit, I look, and I listen. And I think I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing learning and development and instructional design for, at this point, over 18 years. It will all come together in due time. So I sit in the workshops, and over time, we build a relationship with one another. And what I like to do is I like to spend time out in the trenches. That's another thank you to Lindy. I want to know what your workers are doing. I don't want you to describe it to me. I don't want you to try to explain it. I want to sit out there, because typically what's been my experience is whatever a middle manager tells me the job is, and theoretically that might be it. But in practice, it's somewhat different. So I want to be sitting next to the person, watching them do their job, asking any clarifying questions so I can get insight from the person who actually does this job on a day-to-day basis. And that's what I did with this client. I spent time with this client. I began to understand what they do and what this new system is supposed to do. But this system is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's a pretty robust system. I started doing research on it because I'm not provided any information or documentation on the system itself. They have ServiceNow. I learned more about the system and learned more about what they did. I learned more about what that system could actually do for them. And I was able to consult beyond what they knew and what they bought it for to, hey, had you thought about this or maybe that? Or how about that department communicating with this tool? Do you know the functionality of this tool? I became the ServiceNow expert for my team. Fast forward to the first delivery of training. True to form, this client does not want to use us. And even though I'm great and I'm a buddy and I've been in meetings, what they will allow me to do is to make them 3 PowerPoints while they facilitate it. No problem. You want 3 PowerPoints? I could take care of it. I'll go back to Michelle. Michelle, they want 3 PowerPoints. We set up a meeting. Everyone is there. Michelle is there. Michelle's counterpart on that team, on that department is there, all the way down to me. And so what Michelle says to them is, hey, if you want to, she says it to her counterpart, if you want to own the documentation on the system, that's fine. But just know that you will own it. Any changes, any updates, any training, any of those things you will be responsible for. So her counterpart was like, well, we don't have time for, they were growing exponentially. They really didn't have time for the training that they were accustomed to. They were accustomed to individuals sitting with one person on their team, sitting next to her and watching her all day long. And that's how she trained. Well, when you're hiring 10 or 11 people at a time, you can't have 10 or 11 people sit with one person and learn this system and then learn all the other responsibilities of their job, not to mention the one trainer. How is she supposed to be able to keep up with her normal job responsibilities and train at the same time? It's not going to work. So Michelle kind of explains these things. And what she says to them is, hey, we hired Jennifer. She is a certified instructional designer. This is what she does. This is why we hired her, so that she would handle all of your training needs, whatever they may be. You will not lose control over this system or the training. You will still have autonomy at every step. You will have to authorize all the materials, and you will have to approve you will see everything every step of the way. But we will shoulder the responsibility for the documentation, because that's what we do. However, if that's what you want to do, then you're free to do that. And in the midst of this conversation, Michelle pulls a one of these, because she listens to their concerns. She leans in, she puts her fingers together, her eyes brighten, they have her undivided attention. She understands their concerns. She appreciates their concerns. She understands our mandate in our department and what the overall project manager is looking for us to do. And in an instant, she has put every piece of this puzzle together, and everyone is happy. We weren't in that meeting. I don't believe, it's been a while, I don't believe we were there 15 minutes before they said, that's fine. We'll have you do everything. And she looked over to me and she said, Jennifer, you okay with that? You can handle that? And I responded, I absolutely can handle it. What turned into 3 PowerPoints became a full-fledged curriculum, starting with a training seminar that was off-site in another state that was 6 hours, that eventually went to 8 hours, and other modules that built upon it. That's the magic of Michelle. That's something that I always love to see in motion, because no matter what the situation, I knew that once I brought Michelle into it, she was strong enough and confident enough in her position as a manager you can meet without Michelle. She didn't have to micromanage you. She didn't have to sit in the meeting. She trusted that she was sending you forward and that you were the expert. She would say to me, Jennifer, I'm asking your opinion because I want your professional opinion. No differently than when I have a roofer come to my house, I'm going to ask questions about how you're laying the roof and the engineering of the roof, but I'm not an engineer. Make no mistake, I'm not getting up on that roof and I'm not going to put down one shingle. I'm just asking questions so I can better understand the process. I love that about her. I love her ability to use people at their strengths. And there were times too where she would be like, Jennifer, I think you can do it. And I would be like, no, Michelle, I'm good enough to tell you what I can't do. I am not an engineer. I'm not going to train a course on, the fiber networks and all of that. I don't know that. But what I can do is make sure that the program itself it meets adult learning standards and principles, and that I can undergird the engineer who's going to lead the first part of the training that talks about all the technical things, and I can bring it all together. And I respected that she respected the people on her team, and she respected our individual and collective expertise. The magic is never ending. I still have a relationship with Michelle. She is a friend. I meet her for breakfast and she always has great insight because she's an excellent listener, and it's never about her. It's not even about the bottom line or the business. She's always been people focused. And if you're having a challenge, she will always make time to make sure that you have what you need to overcome the obstacle, even if that means a slight push in the right direction. And I love that about Michelle. And I've taken those things with me to this very day, because I have to flex in my leadership style, especially being an elected official and being council president. There are some things that I have to be flat-footed on, that I have to be firm in my discourse, and I have to trust my gut. That's thanks to Jill. But there's other times in working with my colleagues and us having 7 different ideas about what's going to move the municipality forward and 7 different frame of references, even though our ultimate goal is the passion that we have for this community, I have to be able to actively listen to what their desires are, how they think we're going to move forward. I have to position things in a way that everyone feels like we are collaborating. Everyone's bringing something to the table and everyone feels like they're being heard. So these are some of the people that have impacted my leadership style. And I have one more person that I would be so remiss if I did not mention. And that is my dad. My dad is my public sector mentor. My dad was a 25-year councilman in the municipality in which I grew up. And there's a lot of things that I've taken from my dad as a councilwoman that he did that I've kind of massaged and that I do. We'll talk about later on in other videos, the newsletter and how I communicate with my constituents. My dad was always a type of councilman who, if you called, he was going to return your call. If you stopped by the house, he would stop and talk to you. He cared about that community that he served for 25 years. It was not about having his name in lights or leaving a legacy because he didn't have one anywhere else. It was truly about the people, and the legacy he left was one that he cared. My mother taught in the district, and my father was an elected official. So there are definite things that I've taken from my dad, in that I always read my legislation, not just the title, but the whole piece, which we'll talk about another time. I know I try to know as much as my experts. If I ask you a question, I typically already know the answer, or I have a good idea. I just want to see what you're going to tell me. Those are things that I got from my dad, to be knowledgeable, to ask clarifying questions, to be able to vote up or down, yes or no, and to be able to tell you why I voted the way that I voted. And here's the biggest thing. We don't have to agree, my residents and I. I don't even desire that we agree. What gets me going, what excites me, is the fact that they're even engaged, that we can even have a conversation about it. What I want them to do is be able to think for themselves, because I'm not always going to be here. I'm not always going to be in this office. So I want my residents to be able to be critical thinkers and to be able to think issues through completely from beginning to end. So these are the individuals who have impacted my leadership style. And what I want to know from you is, what legacy do you want to leave? How do you want your staff, team members, employees, however you reference them, cohorts, colleagues, how do you want them to remember you? What kind of legacy are you leaving in the people that you're developing? Because leadership matters.